Hello everyone and welcome to Talking Points with KPI episode 18. Today is a special equipment style episode. I have Dan and Chase here to help me out. We are going to be talking about Hawkins Dynamics jump plates. So these equipment are here at KPI and we're going to get in a little bit more. So if you guys don't mind, let's just describe what the force plates are and what they're used for.
Yeah, I think the leading up to our acquisition of the force plates, we had a pretty good S&C system put together. We were getting good results. Athletes were getting better, getting stronger, feeling better. But in every facet of our business, we want to find a way to hold ourselves accountable to that process, that system. Whether it's our hitting system, our pitching system, or our strength and conditioning system. A lot of times in the weight room, the focus is weight. How much weight am I doing on my bench, my squat, my deadlift? Hang clean, whatever lifts your coach thinks are important. And that was the mentality that I was under, right? We need to teach perfect form, teach technique, and then once we have that, we need to load that athlete, stress out the muscles, the body, the central nervous system, so we get the adaptations that we want. That once we obviously brought on Chase and then started talking about integrating force plate technology, it became very apparent that we need that accountability piece. Because if we just chase numbers in the weight room, it doesn't necessarily, like if your bench press goes up or your deadlift goes up, it doesn't guarantee transfer from an efficiency standpoint into your sport. And with baseball and softball being such a skill dependent sport, it took me a little bit of time to kind of get on board, but I really had to, and we've talked about this before, I think in our youth podcast, I had to leave my ego out the door. Hey, if we want to do and say we were going to do what's best for the athletes, if there is a better way that we can go about doing this, then we're going to test it, which we did on ourselves, and then we're going to introduce it to a handful of athletes. One of them made a massive jump, which was huge. We've done a podcast and videos on him. And so I was like, okay, literally we're going to revamp the entire strength and conditioning program. And it took me an entire weekend of writing, hundreds and hundreds of programs. But we've implemented it. We're seeing huge progress with athletes across the board. It's been awesome. I wanted to provide a little context on how we got to the point. So Chase, you go and speak to what are force plates? What do we use? How do we use them? What do they do?
Yeah. I mean, the best part about it is just to hit on being able to hold everything accountable in here, right? And obviously with hitting and pitching, it's a lot easier than S&C. It's always been a problem for
you can see those
years.
Numbers right there
For sure, yeah. And the force plates allow us to really look under the hood and see how an athlete is built and how they move regardless of skill, and then be able to work on that specific facet.
Absolutely.
That whatever they need, whether they're a youth athlete or even an elite athlete, everybody has an issue that they need to be able to work on, and the force plates allow us to kind of zone in on what exactly they need to be able to get stronger at.
And I think up to this point we worked under the scope of, okay, we're gonna assess to see how you're built, your hip range of motion, your spine range of motion, shoulder range of motion. Okay, we understand the structure of the house. Or the framing of the car, using the car analogy. Okay, we know how you're built. Well, the like you said, looking under the hood. Okay, we need to look at the engine. We need to look at the wiring. We need to look at the brakes and the tires. We need to look deeper into this system, this athlete, to understand how we can continue to individualize to their needs.
Absolutely. And so you kind of talk about how it helps you not only on the pitching, the hitting side, but even with strength and conditioning, your assessments. So how does that make you feel when you see your assessments now have it up? Because you're able to see what's under the hood. Most trainers are not able to look under their car, technically, as athletes, under the hood and see what they do. So how do you feel when you're able to have that advantage in an assessment?
I'd say first, afraid, because you could be wrong.
Yeah.
Right? I did this assessment, and I'm like, oh man, here's what's going on. This is this hip range of motion, your spine range, whatever. Okay, here's what we need to do, and then we go to the force plates. I could be wrong here, and that happened quite often when we first started implementing them. I had to get up to speed. I had to learn more, and it really did push me in a good way. But I think we've gotten to the point where I have a grasp. We've had multiple conversations. I would call them think tanks, where we've gotten to the point where we start guessing. Yeah. Right, we're going to guess what we see on the force plates, and we're going to guess what we see on the table. And we're starting to connect the dots anecdotally, but hopefully within the next year we'll be able to really, okay, we're going to have you jump the force plates, and we're going to know exactly if you lack range of motion in your hip or your spine or whatever.
Yeah.
Or we're going to have you on the table, and then we're going to know exactly what we're going to see on the force plates, and be able to connect those dots. It's. I think initially I was overwhelmed and, new, especially for coaches, right? We see this all the time. Anything's new, I'm afraid of. And if it's going to hold me accountable, I don't want that on my plate. But I think that I kind of took my own medicine. Like, hey, we're going to do this to our hitting coaches. We're going to do this to our pitching coaches. We got Rapsodo and hit tracks and all this stuff. We got to validate what you're doing. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I can do the same thing to myself. So, which has been really fun.
From an assessment standpoint too, I think what the force plates do with us is like we're able to actually start talking about things that we didn't talk about with the assessment first, right? To where like you're most likely gonna start getting pain here, or this is gonna cause over rotation in your swing because you're doing this because that's how your body moves. Like that kind of stuff. When you're speaking to skill without seeing them do the skill yet, like it provides a lot of value, right? Because then we can see again that under the hood example of like I haven't seen you throw yet, but these are the likely things with the physical assessment and the force plate that we can speak to and we can see.
Yeah.
And you're getting answers to questions, right? Like right away. Yeah. Like you're getting a roadmap from jumping on a force plate, like already.
And it's this, I've spoken to golf fans, it's this foundational knowledge.
Yeah.
Like where you can't necessarily change how you're built.
Mm-hmm.
We can influence how you're wired because a stress and adaptation that's going to happen based off your sports or injury or just life, we can manipulate that a little bit. But if you're going to go and change somebody's swing, or you're going to change the way they throw, or you're going to look to increase the efficiency of those two things, we need to have this foundational information. If we don't, it's like, having the force plates now, it's like having a scalpel.
Yeah.
You go right to your pain point, take care of it, boom, good.
Yeah.
Versus, before then, it's like, okay, I'm kind of using a butter knife, and it gets the job done, but
Sure,
it's going to take way longer.
It takes longer.
It's going to take so much longer. It really has expedited that process where we will see progress for an athlete within a month to 3 months. Like it's gotten, that quick.
And so I want to dive deep into both the strength and hitting, but I'll start with you, Chase.
Yeah.
How, like you said, obviously it comes with a lot of communication between coaches. You have to be able to tell the jump force place data to you. You have to be able to see it for him.
Yeah.
How does that correlate to? I mean, we talked about the hitting program in prior podcast, and we talked about how we use the jump force place with that. Mm-hmm. But how does it specifically help your hitting program?
Well, this is the best part about it, and this is kind of what obviously I mentioned on the hitting podcast is like. I can't ask an athlete to do something they don't know how to do, right? Mm-hmm. Strength from an athlete's perspective only matters if they can actually use it. So it's if I'm trying to get somebody to hold back further to be able to get more out of their swing, or if I want them and I'm wondering why they're not getting the most out of their swing, whether their mechanics or sound, then I can look at the force plate and say, cool, this is great. Now you need to double down on your S&C. And then, it allows us to hold the athletes accountable as well. And that, because it's like my job is dependent on how hard you work in the weight room. I can only do so much, but if you're not working to get stronger in whatever area that the force plates tell us that you need to work on, then there's only so much gain that you're going to be able to get.
So going into the weight room side, Dan, you are now able to help these kids' programs because you may see some stress on a kid and you may change his program from week to week when before trainers didn't have that. They would stick with the program. I'm sorry, your stress is where it is, but this is what you're going to do for this week. Now you have the capability to change that. Talk a little bit how you're developing your strength programs behind that.
100%. I think, and we'll probably hit this point again, is managing fatigue, whether that's stress or fatigue from baseball or their sport as a whole. It could be from school, it could be from their family, it could be from lack of sleep. So managing that has been a huge, we're creating a flagging system so that we can catch things before they turn into a real problem. But I think it has given me the ability to scale the strength program. We have 140 baseball players in the facility. We have just short of 40 softball players. We have 30 or 40 just general athletes working in our foundations program. To scale for 200 athletes, and for the most part I do 90% of the programming, could be like, oh my gosh, overwhelming. Yeah. So using the force plates to be able to bucket athletes into their area of need, and then adjust accordingly, where it's like we're not just continually chasing deadlift weight. Yeah. We're not just continually chasing how much can I squat. We're chasing perfect technique and movement quality, movement efficiency, and then we check our work with the force plates, and I think that's been a huge asset for us as a business.
Absolutely. So you touched on it a little bit, but go into a little deeper. You talked about the fatigue. So how do these jump plates, Hawkins Dynamics, I keep messing up, the force plates, how does this help you manage that fatigue and be able to get them back on the right track?
Yeah, I'll probably butcher this, so Chase, jump in whenever you're ready. It's just, and he said this yesterday in an assessment, if you are tired, you're going to move slower. Yeah. Simple as that. And so we're not going to see the same rate of force development. we're not going to probably see the same output as far as transferring it up the chain, and it's going to take us longer. Just like anything else, like if you get tired and you're running, say, 10-yard dashes over and over again, your last 3 are going to be slower than your first 3. Yeah. And so we can get this running average over a long period of time on the handful of metrics that we look at, and then that then say, okay, if we see a massive discrepancy in those things, hey, what's going on? To the point where we have especially on the pitcher side, because that's where we care about it. I'd say probably most. We care about all the athletes, but majority is on the pitching side is they input. We have a questionnaire that they fill out and they say, did your jump profile change? I think it's something that's interesting, and it's a core principle for us as a business. We want to push much of this onto them. To like kids are like, well, how do I know if my jump profile's changed? It's like, well, you scroll over all of them, and if the numbers changed, then it says yes. Yeah. and they don't need to know, if the change is good or if it's bad, but it's just purely, did it change? And so it's been, again, like I think that's how we track fatigue, and we know if something else is going on, we have to have that conversation.
Yeah, the best part about it is like being able to have it just spurs more conversations when I see something big change. Yeah. Like, what did you do this past weekend? Like, how did you sleep? Like, are you taking care of yourself? Because if you don't, things like this happen. Your whole body is reacting to everything that you do and how you take care of yourself all the time. So it's like they like the athletes themselves are learning more about their own body and how to take care of themselves and how to be able to not just lifting and just throwing matters, like also everything else. Like it allows for them to understand like when I feel good, what I need to do, when I don't feel good, what I need to do, and what does that even mean, Absolutely. And we have something to really like show when kids don't get sleep because the final week, like it shows up,
I think a cool example of this was an athlete, his profile changed dramatically, and we went and had the conversation. He's like, well, I've been playing pickup basketball every single day at school or after school, and he's not a basketball player. He just plays pickup basketball. Yes. I'm playing with my buddies. And we caught it, and we're like, okay, let's take that into account. Either we only have, training time, we only have so much time and energy, we got to make sure that we're using it efficiently. Absolutely. And so, okay, it's totally fine if you're going to play basketball, but if we're going to go into this high stress phase, whether it's velocity development or in the weight room, we need you to crush it in the weight room, we need you to get after it, then we probably need to scale down that component and figure out another way to have fun with your buddies, or do that on a different schedule so you're not doubling down. I'm playing basketball with my friends, and I'm coming to the weight room, and I'm crushing it, I'm putting my bullpen, I'm getting the cage and swinging. I think that was a really cool example of one of the ways where we had that conversation. We never would have guessed, like, I've just been playing pickup basketball with my buddies. Yeah. Something so, it's like not a big deal. It's like, that's awesome, cool, but it all matters.
Yeah, so you guys talked about communication a little bit. I want to talk about, now we're going to switch off from the coaching side. We've all been former athletes. And having that coach that's able to talk to you about the little things, like, hey, did you get enough sleep? Like, did you do this? Oh, were you playing basketball with your friends? That way you're so tired? Like, having that is a big thing. How have the athletes been reacting to that? I mean, because to them, it's just another piece of conversation. I know to me and a former player, you probably love that conversation. Sure. When someone who knows a little bit more than you is giving knowledge to you. Sure. So how do you see them reacting to that?
They compete. It's all how high can you jump, and it's like all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's good. That's what we want. You know, are you getting strong? Now it's like the kids stop worrying about as much. It obviously still happens because they're kids. Like how much weight I lift. Now it's like we're getting into like am I actually getting better? Like, am I actually?
It's an awesome transition where they'll come and ask me, hey, can you make sure I'm doing this correctly? Yeah. Like I get asked that question a decent amount. But it has significantly increased and since we've implemented this new system. And it's like, I care about doing my form correctly. Yeah. It's something that we try and take pride on. Where I want another coach to come in like, hey, everyone's crushing it. Their form is perfect. I'm not worried about somebody breaking their neck or their back. Awesome. I think that question's been more and more common. And I think it also gives us the opportunity to say hey, I care about you outside of the gym. Yeah. I care about what you're doing when you're playing with your team or doing high school basketball or football. I care about you more than just this 2.5 hours you're in the facility. I know that is a common pain point for kids. Like they'll joke about it. They'll say, "Oh, you only care about me because I paid to train here." It's like, well, when we show up to your high school games in the spring, when we go to your travel ball games in the summer,
actually checking on you.
For sure. That's another way of showing and building that relationship, which has been it's just another tool for us to do that. So it's been cool to do that too.
Awesome. So Chase, I'm the last question here, but you and me have been chopping up a little bit about this topic. But what are so we have the force plates now. We know what they do. We know what we just talked about, what they're capable of do. What is the future KPI with force plates?
Yeah, I mean, we want to get them. We definitely we talked about this before too, but we want to get them into the batter's box to be able to see kind of how that transfers over. That's going to be a big deal here too.
Absolutely.
But being able to see correlations right now, I mean, we have so much data now from the force plates. I mean, I think we probably have close to 150,000, 175,000 jumps now. So like, it's a massive amount of data, but we can be able to correlate that to, okay, like, you know, with that jump profile or with, you know, whatever, however strong you are in one aspect, like how that correlates to throwing velocity, how that correlates to, you know, to bat speed or whatever it may be, right?
Absolutely.
Like that's kind of where we're going with all this now that we have so much data to be able to work with and manipulate and figure out how, you know, these things tie into each other.
I think a unique part for us as a business that we have kids 10, 11, 12 years old jumping on the force plates.
Yeah.
And then we got guys who are 25, 6, 7, 8 who are jumping on the force plates. And we have every athlete in between, from I like baseball and I'm just starting to I am either high-end, D1, pro, minor league. Like, we have this massive spectrum. And then we also have all of their baseball data.
Yeah.
So in this spring, we're just going to pretty much just put them all through, you know, some type of statistical analysis and just, okay, we have this massive haystack. We want to start finding those needles that we can go after and start pinpointing. Okay, here's where we can hang our hat on.
Absolutely.
These metrics correlating to these, and I think that's something that's unique for us. Where a lot of times with the research, especially like from a collegiate standpoint, it's the college kids you can convince to buy, you know, eat pizza while you're doing your study on that. Yeah. And it's like they're not necessarily, like, they're recreational athletes. That's usually how they term them. So we can say, hey, these are our 12-year-olds. These are our prepubescent athletes. Here's our athletes who are in puberty. Like, it's a weird, outlandish goal. Yeah. Like, I want to know when an athlete's going to hit puberty. Yeah. Because there are direct injury implications that could happen during that time.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely.
Little leaguer's elbow is rampant. Not a lot of people talk about that, but it's purely like, I'm throwing a lot while I'm growing.
Too much stress.
Yeah. And so I like to be able to pinpoint that and say, okay, hey, during this time, we're going to manage your throwing volume because we don't want you to have to take 6 weeks off. Yeah. Because there's nothing you can do with the bones. It's literally like you break your arm from throwing. Yeah. And like, all right, bone heals. You're going to be totally fine, but it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks.
For that.
Yeah. So I think that's the direction we're going, and we'll likely come summer or this coming spring, when things slow down for us a little bit, we'll be able to dive into this stuff and like you said, connect the dots stronger between that foundational aspect, how you're built, how you're wired, to then completely specific, how do you perform in your sport? And the tighter we make that connection, the more we understand how to build that plan, that system, the more we can make your performance enhancements happen as fast and safely as possible.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for listening very much. This has been Talking Points with KPI, episode number 18. This is about Hawkins Dynamic Force Plates. So please go check them out. They have an Instagram and Twitter. And please also go check us out on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube, where this podcast will go up. Also on Apple Music and Spotify. So please go give it a listen. Thank you guys very much.